Ever feel like there is a million things on your mind, sticky notes everywhere, and you have all these apps that are supposedly going to keep you organized, yet they don't, and you still feel scattered and overwhelmed? Well, you are not alone. Myself and plenty of my clients have felt this in the past, and it's really because you don't have a place to keep your things organized. So we're going to talk about the 3 spaces you need to stay organized so you can remove the scatteredness, you can remove the overwhelm out of your life, and instead feel clear and confident and take action in the direction of your goals in today's episode, which I'm really excited to get into because I know that when I implemented these 3 spaces into my life, it propelled my success, and I know it'll do the same thing for you today. Welcome to the Fire Inside podcast. I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you for coming back every single week. If this is your first time watching one of the podcast episodes, please go ahead and watch back the other episodes. We are currently on episode 7 of 52 and we are killing it, right? So on this podcast, I know that there's a fire in your heart, an ambition in your soul. You know what you want to do and you know you need to make a change to get there, but you want to do it with a bit more ease. And that's what we tackle in this podcast. All things personal development, time management, and leveling up so you can become your best, most optimal self. This podcast is your weekly reminder to stop playing small and start living full out, whether it's in your career, your wellness, your relationships, or just your overall personal goals. We cover the strategies and the mindset shifts to help you succeed. I'm your host, Sade Kelly, CEO of The Fire Inside, wife, mom, and life enthusiast. Over at The Fire Inside, I help ambitious people just like you manage their time so they can balance their work, their wellness, and relationships peacefully. I help my clients achieve their goals 6 times faster and save 28 or more hours of their time per week. And I'm so excited to help you do the same with all of the tactics and strategies that I'm going to be sharing in today's episode around how to create those 3 spaces to keep you organized. Now, we kind of already touched on what happens when you don't have these 3 spaces, but essentially you're typically overwhelmed. You feel like you're playing catch up. You're struggling to track important tasks, ideas, commitments. And I've seen this time and time again with clients where they have multiple notebooks. They have Google Calendar, Apple Calendar, they're using Sunsama, they're using ClickUp, they're using Trello. They don't know which one works best for them. They're trying to start using Monday because they saw that somewhere. And then somebody online talked about having this amazing paper planner. So they go and order that paper planner. They're just scattered all over the place. They're hopping around from productivity tool to productivity tool, not realizing that it's not necessarily the tool that you need to shift, but typically it's the process that you need to shift. Now you can use any tool and you can learn how to customize it towards what you need. And I personally help people to do that. But really what people miss is having the different spaces that they need and having these systems, right? The process behind how you're staying organized is what's really key and what's going to keep you on track. So that way you're not wasting time looking for things or figuring out what's priority over not. Like you're just going into your days with a clear plan and clear on your purpose on how you're going to get to where you want to get to by the end of the day so that you can have everything checked off. Because believe it or not, many of us are getting everything checked off at the end of the day, and it becomes something that is second nature when you know how to prioritize, set time restrictions for each of your tasks, and you know how to just go ahead and attack things and adapt as needed. So I want to talk about these 3 spaces. I'm sure you want to hear about them too. I'm sure you're like, all right, let's get to the spaces. We know where we're at already. We know we're frustrated. What are these 3 spaces? Well, I'm excited to get into this. So the first space you need to have is typically what people call their to-do list, which I don't like to-do lists. I'm not a fan of to-do lists because I think they're often super unorganized all over the place. But what I like to call to-do lists are brain dump lists because that's what I really think they are. So the first space you need to have is a brain dump space. Think of this as your brain's overflow space, right? It's where you let everything out that's going on. It's where you store your random ideas, where you store your reminders, your notes, anything that kind of pops into your head. I like to keep a running brain dump. So for me, that's a Google Doc. For you, it could be a sheet of paper in a notebook. It could be maybe your notes app, whatever you feel like you like to use to collect everything. But all I ask is that you create it in one space because you don't want to have it in multiple spaces because then what happens is you lose track of things and then there's no point of having this space because it's not one space you can have as your go-to. So in this one space, you want to just, like I said, write everything out that's on your mind. And you don't need to organize it just yet. This is just your catch-all space, your brain dump space. This is where everything that's cluttering up your mind goes into this, okay? So keep that space as your just overall brain dump space. Now, when you're planning week to week, the point of this space is that it catches everything so that you don't miss little things. And there's nothing too small or too big that can't go on this. It can be as small as you need to clip your son's toenails and fingernails. That's something that was on my brain dump, this list, because I know y'all probably thinking that was real specific. That was on my list. Something that small, and then something as big as making sure my PowerPoint is ready for my upcoming class was also on my list, right? So there's nothing too big or too small. This is my list where I catch everything. Now, when I'm planning for the week, what I do with this list is I sit down, I review the entire list, and I look at, okay, what are the things that need to happen this week? And I just think about what are those things that need to happen this week. Then I go through, okay, what are the priorities for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday, because those are the days that I typically work. But whatever days you work, go ahead and prioritize based on the days you work. And then that is what you use to categorize your brain dump. You start thinking through, okay, what are the work tasks? What are the personal tasks? And maybe you want to go even granular. For me, under work tasks, off the top of my head, I know I have like a content space. I know I have a marketing and sales space. I know I have an ops and admin space. I know I have a finance space. Like I have my big sectors for my business, and then I take each of the tasks and I put them under that category within my brain dump. I also like to categorize my brain dump around my cycle. So I think about my menstrual cycle and where I'm at energy wise. And then I like to categorize based on that within a month's time frame. There's different ways you can go about that as well. I teach that in my Overwhelmed to Organized program. If that's something you're interested in, I would love to help you through that. But I also just make sure that I'm prioritizing based off my energy, based off what needs to happen. So what's urgent versus what's important versus what's not important, what's more something I can delegate, et cetera, et cetera. I like to use the Eisenhower matrix to prioritize. There's many different ways that you can prioritize that I also teach in my program. But what I want you to do is just create that brain dump space. That's what I highly recommend. Have that space for catching everything, and then categorize it as needed. So that way when you're planning for the week, it's categorized. Now, if you're not doing this and you're listening to this, I urge you to just start. Like maybe just try this out. If you're someone who's like, I like listening to these podcast episodes, it makes me feel more organized, I learn great things about personal development, but do I really need to plan my weeks? Yes, you do. Everyone needs to plan their weeks. If you're not taking your time seriously, if you're not planning your weeks, you're not taking your life seriously if you aren't thinking through what you're doing day to day. Now, I know you're someone who's here because you're ambitious, you want great things out of life, you want to become your best self. All of those things come from taking a moment to just plan. You may have less things that you need to plan because you have a pretty, I don't want to say mundane, but a pretty standard way of living. Maybe you have standard tasks that you're doing day to day. There is still a lot of power in taking a step back and thinking through how you can streamline things, how you can be more effective, how can you plan things and group things together to get more things done. So you should still have a brain dump space. That's the number one space you're going to have. Second space that I want you to have is a space for your goals and your task management. This is where you house your roadmap for your goals. This includes your goals and the tactics and projects that need to happen so you can complete these goals and hit your certain deadlines. So this is what I like to call my goal planner. Now I have a goal planner template and training that you could go ahead and get on my site. I also include it in the show notes. And what this goal template training and template essentially help you to do is map out all of your goals. So think through what are your major goals for the year, and they can be anything. Whatever it is that you want to achieve this year, think about what is that larger goal? What are the small things that I need to be doing on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, quarterly basis, etc., so I can hit that goal. You need to have this space. What I realized with clients who didn't have this space was that they didn't feel fulfilled. So a lot of times they were saying, I'm doing a lot of busy tasks, I'm doing a lot of things, but none of the things make me feel fulfilled. That is because their tasks and what's in their brain dump and the things that there's constantly on their mind is not necessarily in alignment with their goals roadmap, right? It's not necessarily in alignment with what they need to be managing in their tasks. You want to make sure those two things connect, because that's where fulfillment and living out your purpose and feeling like you're aligned with your values and what you're ultimately here to do, this is where it intersects and it all comes together. So you want to have this space for your goals. This is where you're written out all of your goals, all of your tactics that need to happen to achieve your goals. And this is what you're using to reference when you're organizing your brain dump and planning for your week. Now, I hope this is clear. If it's not, leave any questions you have below, but that is essentially how streamlined these spaces need to be. You need to have that brain dump where you're catching everything that's on your mind. You need to have that goal, task management, roadmap space, right? You need to have this space where literally you can look and see all of your goals, see all the tasks that you need to be capturing to achieve those goals. What I like to use, I know it's always nice to hear an example, is I use a Word doc for my brain dump. And then for my goals roadmap, I use my goal template. I actually sell, like I use that. I use that for clients. I use that for myself. And I also use Sansama from the task management. So a connection of those three really helps me to get things done. So like I said, the Google Doc, I write all of the different things that are on my brain dump. That's categorized. And then I think through, okay, what's on that brain dump? Is it aligning with what's on my goal template? Like I look through the goal planner template. Is everything on there? All the tasks lined up? Is it aligning? Okay. Now I need to take those tasks and put it in Sansama because that's my task management software that I use. It's the tool that I use. And then the last space you need to have is a space for scheduling. I believe everyone should be digitally scheduling because we always have our phones, right? But we don't always have our paper planners or our notebooks. Now, if you are someone who is rare, that I've had clients like this, who does keep their iPad or their notebook or whatever next to them, but technically your iPad would be a digital space, but some people do keep their planner and the notebook everywhere with them. If you're like that, then you could automatically make your scheduling a physical space. That's fine. But what I think about what's so great about the digital space is it has meeting reminders. It can send you emails. You can see it visually like on your phone. It can sync up with other things. And one thing I like about Sansama specifically is it syncs up with different email accounts, and it syncs up with different project management accounts, and it syncs up with a lot of different tools that people are using. So it's all in one space. But it's totally up to you what you choose. I just want you to make sure you have a space for scheduling. So that way you can take all the tasks that you put in your brain dump, you can align it with your goals roadmap, and you have your task management tool all ready to go. But when you're scheduling it, you have one central spot that you're scheduling it, and you're making sure that it's on the calendar and you're time blocking it out. The amazing thing about time blocks is that when you assign time to do something, typically it gets done, right? As long as you follow through on it and you have great discipline, which is something you can learn. And I have videos on discipline. I also have that as a part of my services. But when you are making sure that things are time blocked out, typically you're going to get them done because it's planned in like a meeting. You're going to show up and you're going to do it. Now, where I see people fall short with that is that they often don't give themselves enough time to get those things done. So if that's where you're at, make sure that you are giving yourself more than enough time to get those time blocks in. And this is also a great way to track all of your appointments, to track all of your meetings, your personal time, your self-care, like we talked about in the last episode. All the things that you want happening in your life should have a scheduled block. And I know for some people you're hearing this and you're like, oh, I hate those time block schedule where it's like down to the second, everything is scheduled. You don't have to have it like that. You can have a lot of free space. Now, when I work with clients, sometimes we will literally create free blocks. Make sure there's a lot of free time where there's just clear space and they can choose what they want to do. But there's so much power in getting your priorities scheduled in because you'll feel more free. If you're someone who feels guilty when you're resting or when you're taking a break, it's probably because you don't know when your priorities are going to happen and you don't feel like you can enjoy that freedom. You can enjoy that freedom and you feel more organized and guilt-free and able to have more fun when your work priorities or the things you know you need to get done are scheduled in, you've gotten them done. And when you get them done earlier in the day, typically it makes the rest of your day a bit better. I recommend that. That's how I'd work around it. But you really want to make sure you just have that space where you are scheduling. And this can look like having a space in Google Calendar. I know I've harped on Sansama, but I like to have a mixture of Sansama and Google Calendar to have this space. And this is just where I'm regularly reviewing my full-on calendar, regularly reviewing what I have going for the day. Am I on track? Do I need to adapt? Do I need to move things around? And that's another great thing about digitally scheduling. It's very easy to move things around when you're doing it digitally versus when you're doing it on a paper planner. It's way harder. You got to erase. It's a hot mess. Like, Not saying you can't do it on paper planner, because I know there's people watching who are like, I'm a paper girl, I love to write things down. Go ahead and do that, but just think about also having a digital space, doing a mixture of both, because it really helps you to stay streamlined and stay organized. I hope this was short and sweet and to the point and concise, which I believe it was. And let me know in the comments what you think. What are the 3 spaces that you need to implement? Do you need to implement all 3 of these that I talked about today? Are you going to do a kind of your own mixture of things? I would love to hear how are you going to stay organized so you don't have 20,000 million different apps and notebooks and post-its that you're using to organize your tasks and your thoughts and your goals, but instead you have specific spaces. So what are your 3 spaces? That's your action item for this podcast. What is going to be your brain dump space? What is going to be your goal/task management space? And then what is going to be your scheduling space? What are the things that you're going to use? Streamline them. Make sure you have at least one spot for each thing. So like I talked about, one spot for the brain dump, one spot for your goals, one spot for where you're going to manage your tasks, and then one spot for how you're going to schedule. And this can kind of be tailored based off your personality and what you like to do. And I would love to answer any questions about that in the comments, or you can go ahead and hop on a free time audit call where I will audit your time, audit your systems, tell you where you could be doing better and where you're doing great already, so that you can close the gap between what you're doing with your time and what you'd like to be doing with your time. If you want to go ahead and schedule one of those, meet me in the description box below this video and or podcast episode. If you're watching this on or listening to this on Spotify or Apple, the link will be in the notes. If you enjoyed this episode and you got a lot of value out of it, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And please share this with someone else who may need it, because everyone needs these gems. Let's share these gems with other people so they can continue to live an organized and peaceful life that feels balanced and fulfilled. And if you're ready to take your time to the next level, like I said, book that time audit call. Go ahead and check out my services at thefireinsidesade.com. And I look forward to connecting with you guys in the next episode. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.